Hey everyone, Kyle once again. Welcome back to another movie review. Now, of course, you should know from the title of this video, you should know what I'm reviewing. I figure because since I haven't done a rant in a little bit. I've been reviewing family films, animation films, and all sorts. Although recently I've been doing a couple of a different genre of different types of films. But for the past couple times I've been viewing family films, so I figure I haven't done a rant in a while, so I figure why not do one on this piece of shit of a film, that everybody hates and it still gets hated on. Dr. Seuss's The Cat in the Hat. Yeah. So yeah, what can I don't know what can I say about The Cat in the Hat? Well, the film. I just don't know what to say. This. I know. If everybody's seen the film, they hate the film. They already know what to say. But get my take on it. Okay, so let's start off with the film was released in November 2003. It was number one for the film was number one for 2 weeks through the Thanksgiving weekend. But despite it made some money, but it wasn't that big of a hit that it did for How the Grinch Stole Christmas. How that film made a lot more money back in 2000. But this wasn't that much big of an impact compared to that film. It made $101 million in the U.S. on a budget of $109 million. And worldwide it made $133 million. So it made some money though, but it wasn't that big of a hit. Even to be honest, the film deserves to make no money at all. And so the film came out, it was panned by critics. Everybody hated the film. Critics hated it. Other people hated it. But comparing to How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey, back then, when I saw it back in the 2000, I remember seeing that in the theater and I did like it, but now today, my interest has dwindled down from the film. It's like not a big fan anymore. But I never saw this in the theater. Thank God I never saw this in the theater, because otherwise I would have walked out of the theater. But when the film came out, it was nominated for multiple Golden Razzie awards, and even for Stinker's Bad Movie Awards. It was nominated for Worst Actor of the Decade, Worst Supporting Actor, Worst Supporting Actress, Worst Picture, Worst Director, Worst Screenplay, Worst Screen Couple, Worst Excuse for an Actual Movie, All Concept No Content, and Worst Comedy of our first 25 years. So, but out of those, I'm saying how many nominations was it? How many nominees it was nominated for? I think it was like 8. I don't know. Well, anyway, but out of all those nominations, which this film does get deserved. This type of film deserves to be nominated. And it won one, and that was for worst excuse for an actual movie, which it deserves. And even for Stinkers, and for a lot of Stinkers Bad Movie Awards as well, which it does, and it won more of those as well, which it deserves. This type of film that deserves to be nominated, So, and why I'm pausing, because I just don't know what I can say about this film. It's just, it has a 10% on Rotten Tomatoes. It deserves it. In fact, it deserves 0. It has a 3.8 on IMDb. It deserves it. Although a while back, remember it had a 3. It was down to a 3.4. So for some reason it went up. And which was a funny thing is, for some reason in my mind, when 50 Shades of Grey came out, originally on IMDb it was given a 3.9. But then it went up to 4.1 though, And when I saw a 3.9, which rated, like, really, that film had to be that bad to get that low of a rating to next to The Cat in the Hat. It has to be that bad, to get that such low rating next to Cat in the Hat. But it has it's gone up on IMDb. But just for some reason, my mind was just thinking like it had to be that bad to get that such low rating next to this piece of shit of a film, And now it was directed by a guy named Bo Welch, who was known as a production designer. He did the design of the sets on a lot of films, including the Men in Black trilogy, Wild Wild West, Ghostbusters 2, The Birdcage, Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice, The Lost Boys, Thor. And this is the only film that he's directed, and which is the only thing I will give credit to for the film, since he was a production designer. How he made it look like really look like a Dr. Seuss type world. It looks good. That's the only thing I'll give credit for. How it looks like a Dr. Seuss type world. The setting of the film, That's the only thing I give credit for. But especially Mike Myers as the Cat in the Hat, compared him to Jim Carrey, Jim Carrey was much better as the Grinch than Mike Myers as the Cat, And this film was so bad, the wife to Dr. Seuss, she banned all live action, further making of live action films of her husband's books, And since then you got animation films of Horton Hears a Who and the Lorax, And now they're trying to make an animated version of the Cat in the Hat, Which maybe would be better than this because I like Horton Hears a Who, and I didn't mind the Lorax though. So maybe it'd be better to make it an animated film, What can I say about the Cat in the Hat, But anyway, getting into the story, it opens up, in this town. Still, like I said, the way it looks like a Dr. Seuss type world, it looks pretty good for the settings, And you have this woman who the mother played by Kelly Preston, who's a mother with if you read the books, the two kids, brother and a sister. The brother's played by Spencer Breslin, and the other one is played by Dakota Fanning. She's more like a stuck-up type of girl, She has her phone always has this list of what to do, do this and do that, And Spencer Breslin, who was the brat, was out of control, And of course they have the neighbor played by what was that neighbor name? Lawrence or Larry, played by Alec Baldwin, Well, Alec Baldwin, because he's embarrassing to look at in this film. Alec Baldwin. I like Alec Baldwin as an actor though, but on some films no, but he's completely embarrassing in this film, And from what I understand, in this feature, there was a commentary in this film, if I can find it. Yeah, I remember there was a commentary in this film, and I think he did a commentary with the director, I think. But he's a guy who wants to marry the mother, and he wants to send Spencer Breslin, who was the character named Conrad. He wants to send him off to military school, and while the mom goes to work, the two kids sit down, like in the book, they sit looking out the window, and they hear a bump, a noise. Well, before that, they have this woman who's a babysitter, and she falls asleep, and when this being introduced to Mike Myers, the Cat in the Hat, with his very annoying, extremely annoying laugh, which everybody seems to hate. He makes me. That's what's another thing. He laughs. He makes a joke, which is not even funny, and he laughs at it, sort of like a wheezing type of laugh, Mike Myers is really, really annoying. He doesn't shut up, He just talks and talks and talks. Makes bad jokes and even laughs at them. Like, one instance, like he was talking, he's like, "Why, I'm the cat in the hat. There's no doubt about that. I'm a super duper prodigious feline." And he's like, trying to make another rhyme. He's like, "I got nothing. I'm not so good with the rhyming. Yeah. Yeah, anyway, the cat in the hat who everything in Dr. Seuss's books is all in rhyme, and he says he's not good at rhyming. Yeah, ain't that funny. Of course, there's like other instances like oh yeah, this is what's supposed to be funny. Of course, he has they're supposed to not be in the living room, but he wants to they're not supposed to jump on the couch, so he fixes it to be a couch that makes it extra bouncy so he could be jump higher on the couches. Of course, he's dressed like a mechanic, and of course, they have the joke where he actually, he shows he literally shows his ass crack, to two of the kids, in front of them. Yeah, that's just supposed to be funny. They want to see the cat show his ass crack. That's supposed to be hilarious. Ha 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 ha. And then there's another instance where, of course, where Alec Baldwin comes in, has not really he's really like a loser. He dresses like he's a businessman, but he's not. He's really just a loser, and he wants to marry the mother to probably get her money for whatever, And he comes to the house and he's allergic to cats, so he starts sneezing, And so then with the cat, when there's he pretends to well, first there's another joke, which who sees the babysitter, and says, "You pay this woman to sit on babies? That's disgusting. I do it for nothing." Yeah, that's another funny joke. Thinking of sitting on babies is another funny joke. The joke, the joke. These are some of the worst jokes I've ever heard in a film like this I've ever heard of. Some of the worst jokes I've ever heard of. They're not funny whatsoever. They're just shitty jokes. Like an instance where he's pretending like he's on a cooking show. He has multiple versions of him, and he cuts his tail off. Goes, "Son of a bit," cuts that technical difficulty screen, and they make a mess of the kitchen. So he brings in the magic box, thing one, thing two, who are also annoying little ones, Especially they look creepy as well, I know I remember seeing there was a cartoon version of years ago. There was a cartoon version of the story. They didn't look like that though. Thing one and thing two, they look like scary as hell. But of course instead of fixing the problem, they make more of a mess in the house. And the dog runs away because it has a lock to keep the crate shut. But the dog runs away, out in the streets, So they go and find the dog. Of course, when he tries to when he hops over a fence, of course he has a hoe, like Time to Die, He calls it dirty hoe, Calls it, the joke, it's a hoe, calls it a dirty hoe, which literally means calling it like an insulting a woman, that slang term, dirty hoe. Yeah, ha 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 ha. I get it. It's not funny either. And of course, he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, baby," and he almost wants to kiss the hoe. I'm like, God. This is why I mean the jokes in this are not funny whatsoever, I'm sure a lot of people who've seen this film, they know what I'm talking about, and they probably seen the film, they probably hate the jokes as well, Fucking god damn it, So, and of course they go to a party, when of course he hides it pretend to be being a piñata, the other kids are hitting him. Of course, there's another kid who takes a big old bat and smacks him right between the legs, And also he goes into this happy place. You hear that song, "I'm easy like Sunday morning," and he's in a girl's outfit with was it a pony or was it a unicorn? I think it was a unicorn because it had a horn to it, Oh my god. This is such a painfully unfunny movie. I don't understand how this film will make money, I just don't. Even though it wasn't that big of a hit, though, but I don't understand how it doesn't make that. How I don't understand how this film made that money be #1 for 2 weeks in a row. Anyway, there's more to it. So they still didn't get the dog. Alec Baldwin sees the dog, wants to get it. Um, but eventually he does get it, and they go back to get his vehicle. Calls it super luxurious omnidirectional whatchamajigger. Of course, you take the first letter of each word. It spells SLW. It's slow for short. And of course, he talks about his previous one was like soup was just called super hydraulic instantaneous transporter, which specifically spells the first name of each letter specifically spells out the word, which is best I can describe for this movie. SHIT shit. And that's what this movie is. It's shit. That's a perfect example of how they did that. And of course, Professor Breslin, he goes like, "Oh, you mean?" And then Cat goes, "Oh no, go quick to the slow." Oh, of course, also they have with them is also that fish from the book, that starts talking, And of course, looking up the voice of that fish, who voices that fish is also Sean Hayes. He voices the fish, and he also plays the mother's boss, at the hand sanitizer factory they work at. The guy who says, "You're fired." Yeah, that guy also voices the fish as well. And of course, the guy who plays the boss, Sean Hayes, also annoying. Was saying, "You're fired." You're just better off playing the voice of the fish. It's better. So as they're driving off. All three have steering wheels, out of control, crashes, blah blah blah. So they get the dog back from Alec Baldwin. They randomly go into this thing where down below there is this party, and of course in one of the party people you see Paris Hilton just randomly out of nowhere, just like she's just randomly put in there, for no reason whatsoever. Then as they drive, they get back to the house, and Alec Baldwin is there. As they get in the house, they see nothing's happened to the house because the crate leaks out all the stuff that goes from the cat's world into their world. It's called the mother of all messes. The cat scares Alec Baldwin. And he falls. If he falls down a cliff, and of course they step into a completely different world. So as they ride that's another funny thing. The babysitter who's still asleep. They ride on her like it's like an amusement park. That's what the Spencer Breslin says. It's like an amusement park, and then the cat goes and directly advertises. You mean like Universal Studios? Ching. Yeah, that's the product placement, because this film is released by Universal Studios. That's the only way they can make that joke. So they find the crate. They close it, and all the house. Everything turns to know, but the house is much more of a bigger mess than usual. And they finally kick him out. But of course, it's like the ending of the book. He has that machine that cleans up with all the hands. They clean up. And the thing one thing too, they go back to inside the crate, and the cat says the goodbyes, and he goes to the back door as the mother steps into the front door. Alec Baldwin covered in that blue goop or glop, whatever. Cat, she goes and she kicks him out, Then they have the party, and it's all well as ends well. And then you got of course, like the narrator turns, which is actually the cat. Same thing with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's the narrator. It's actually one of the Oompa Loompas. And then ends with a cat. With the thing one thing two walking away down the street. Probably a lot of people would do agree with me because whoever's seen the film, they do agree that the film is still a piece of shit, And I, I just don't want to like I say the main problem is Mike Myers is he's completely unfunny. He laughs his own jokes. With essentially that annoying wheezing sound. And please ignore my dog in the background. I do apologize for that though, because my dog, she hears something outside and she barks at it. That's what she does. So I apologize for that though. But getting back to this, but he's annoying. He's annoying as hell. He doesn't shut up. The jokes what he does make are not funny whatsoever. Alec Baldwin like I said, he embarrasses himself in this film. He's also annoying as well. The Spencer Breslin, Dakota Fanning, they're so. Because I didn't mind them in other films. But the films is way too annoying. It's just doesn't make a problem with the film. It's not funny. Which I understand why this guy. Jeffrey Lyons of NBC TV calls it enormously funny. I totally disagree with that. This film is not funny whatsoever. I understand. I want to say, what is so funny about this film? Name one thing in the film that's enormously funny in the film. Name one thing. Let's see, what jokes are that's supposed to be funny? What, with the cat dressed like a mechanic to fixing the couch and shows his ass crack, Or it just goes to the fence and picks up a hoe and calls it a dirty hoe, and almost, Or the instance of his vehicle, the name, take the first letter of each name, and especially the vehicle he had literally spells out the word shit, which basically that's the best way to describe this film. Or another funny instance where when Alec Baldwin takes the dog away and he's in his car and the dog pisses on his tacos, Or the other joke where he's pretending the cat's a piñata and the kid hits him in the balls, and of course he goes in the happy place where he's dressed in that girl's outfit and with a freaking unicorn in the back, And that song, I'm easy like Sunday morning, that song, I mean, what is so funny about this film? Well, ask me, what is so freaking funny about this film? I mean, the only thing I give credit to is like how the way the world looks. That's the one thing I give credit to because it looks like a Dr. Seuss type world because that's how it's supposed to be because it's based off Dr. Seuss. The world looks good. That's the one thing I give credit to because the budget in the film was used well to make those sets. But the characters aren't likable, especially the cat. Mike Myers, the cat, is who's annoying as hell. He doesn't shut up, The jokes, like I say, he laughs at his own jokes with a terrible, horrible, annoying, wheezing laugh, like, I just don't understand. I don't understand how this film got made. I don't understand. It's because because How the Grinch Stole Christmas was a huge hit, and so they wanted to put a lot of money into into making this film. But it wasn't that big. But it wasn't that big of a hit. It made some money, but not a whole big. Wasn't that big of a hit. And I don't blame Dr. Seuss's wife. Because since he died he died years ago, and she's still alive. She was still alive then. I think she still is. I don't blame her banning all making live actions of her husband's books, because they were planning on making a sequel that was also based on the book. The Cat Comes Back, The Cat in the Hat Comes Back, which I read the book, They were gonna make a live action sequel to this, and since she banned all live action making of it, they canceled the sequel, which I don't blame her, and I don't think I want to see a sequel either. I'm glad that's never been made. And it was also even worse than even before Mike Myers was going to be cast as the cat, Tim Allen was going to be playing as the cat. I think that would have been even a worse choice because I don't see Tim Allen playing this kind of a character at all, But Mike Myers made it. But even though probably Tim Allen would not have been fitting, Mike Myers, especially how he played this character, was a lot worse. The film deserves to be nominated for those Razzies and won one of them, which it deserves. It deserves those low ratings on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. I just don't know what more I can say about it, But I was wondering what I can say about this film. It was a wide decision to make all those films be banned, you know, because probably would have been even worse. I believe it was better off making animation films, make it into animated films. Like I said, I like Horde and Here's a Who, you know, and I didn't mind the Lorax. Probably better to make this into an animated film, probably for the better. So yeah, like I said, I probably decided to do this because I haven't done a rant in a while, you know. Especially I've been recently still reviewing family films, you know. So it was good to get this one out of the way, you know. Probably a lot of people will agree with me. This film is still a piece of shit, you know. I don't understand how it's enormously funny, you know. I don't understand how this person calls it funny, you know. So yeah. And also, before I end this review, I just want to say this is this is also I consider another one of my favorite episodes that's done by Nostalgia Critic. That's another I consider one of my favorite episodes that's done by Nostalgia Critic. You know, I saw that video of him reviewing the film. You know, I consider it's also one of my favorite reviews. You know, Nostalgia Critic is a funny guy. You know, and I still watch his videos. You know. Because he's hilarious. Although I do agree with what he said at the end of the review, how he said these are not just simple kids books, and how he described that how these simple kids books are far more adult than you have given credit for, you know. Because you know, even though I didn't read a lot of Dr. Seuss, although I read the basic ones like The Cat in the Hat and How the Grinch Stole Christmas and Are You My Mother, you know, those are like one of my favorite films. Books that's read by Dr. Seuss, you know. And yeah, yeah, this is like I said, that's one of my favorite episodes. It's also by Nostalgia Critic, you know. But yeah, so I don't know what else I can say about it. Like I said, this film, fuck that movie. I'm glad. The sequel. The cancel sequel. I'm glad that there's no more live action adaptation of these Dr. Seuss books. Better off making animated films. So yeah, so fuck that movie. Fuck The Cat in the Hat. Mike Myers. It's better off playing like the characters he plays it's better if he's playing characters like in Wayne's World, you know, or Austin Powers. I'm not. I like the first. I only like the first Austin Powers. The sequels, not fans of. Only the first film I will give pass. You know, the character he plays is much better than the Cat in the Hat. You know, the Love Guru. You know, so I Married an Ex-Murderer. I like that film. That's where he plays like a normal guy. You know, although he did play one also in Wayne's World as well, but. I just remember watching those films, those Mike Myers films, over this. Although another thing, I like him as Shrek. You know, I like him voicing as Shrek. That's another thing. I don't think I give credit to Mike Myers. I like him when he voices as Shrek. You know, pretty sure a lot of people do. You know, but the Cat in the Hat, compared to Shrek and the Cat in the Hat, it's obviously a no-brainer. You know, Shrek is way better. The character Shrek is way better than the Cat in the Hat. So yeah, fuck that movie. So I hope you enjoyed my my rant on the Cat in the Hat, you know. I just also wanted to give my take on it because I haven't done a rant in a while. So since I've been doing a lot of reviews of family films, why not do this so-called family film, you know? So yeah, so that's my review for the Cat in the Hat rant. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned on the next movie review. Later.